Hey, you're back with the Get Out Deck guy, Steve Rode, and the new-ish Get Out Deck guy, Damon Day. And today we're talking about a question that I got and answered about repossessions. And it's funny, Damon, somebody can ask you a pretty simple question, and all of a sudden it exposes the complexities of needing good debt help. Now, the question was, this guy had a car. It was a used car. The warranty had run out on it, and his transmission was having issues. And he wanted to know if he should uh, turn the car in and buy a new car, have it voluntarily repossessed. And he said that he talked to the dealer, and they were of no help. He wondered if he should talk to his lender.
He should talk to the guy that calls and says, "Hey, I've been trying to reach you about your car's warranty."
The extended warranty.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about this situation is you or myself can provide all the advice in the world for a reader question. But the reality is that these situations are just much more complex than a textbook answer, because they never take into account the complexities of people's individual lives. And this is what makes me laugh, Damon. When people pick up the phone and they call a credit counselor or a debt settlement company or somebody like that whenever they're having a financial problem, the counselor, the salesperson, is quick to give them the canned answer. This is exactly what you need to do. But, oh my God, in all my years, every situation is different. How about you?
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us today on
Doctor, I concur.
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay. Just giving Steve fits today. No, hey, nobody likes the repo man. But you gave a pretty concise and good, well thought out answer in your video. You and I don't think ever give textbook answers to anything. I think people could agree with that. Now, there are times where a voluntary repo can make sense, but as you pointed out in your video, it should definitely not be the first thing you look at.
Yeah, so the video Damon's talking about is over on YouTube. I have this channel called Old Guy Insights, where I answer questions from people on a wide variety of topics, not just money things.
And
Moving on.
This guy's got like 12,000 subscribers in less like a month on this new channel.
Well, today's
I don't know. He hit the
question was,
YouTube lottery. I don't know what he's doing over there, but holy moly, go check it out. Old Guy Insights. You'll probably yell at him like everybody else.
Oh yeah, please feel free. Today's, I actually had somebody that yelled at me over the weekend in the comments, and they told me that what I was saying was not true and I should stop lying. And my response was, you should stop not fact checking.
But was that your video on fact checking?
No.
Oh, is that why you did the video on fact checking?
That is why I did the video. Yeah. But so, the question I answered today was all about should I buy a used car, which kind of falls into this in a bit. So, I thought what really struck me with that question that I was asked about the should I turn my car in, I haven't talked to the lender yet, is what's the downside of talking to the lender? I mean, if you're late, they already know you're late. If you're going to fall behind, they're going to know it soon. So I have had, in the past, when I was working with clients, I certainly have had my share of people who call, or I, on their behalf, talk to their lender and got a surprise response. I mean, probably one of the most surprising was I had a client where the lender, she was in a lease, and the lender allowed her to assign her lease to somebody else rather than fall behind on it, which I thought they never did.
Especially post-COVID, lenders act very different now, I think, than they did pre-COVID. And
Yeah.
you kind of see it even when when everything went to crap in '08. You
Hmm.
saw that too. Like lenders adjust policies all the time,
Yeah.
usually coinciding with how bad their books are looking. They tend to be like, our books are really ugly right now. Let's be nicer and be a little bit more flexible with people that are still trying to send us money.
Well, I find that there are some basic rules. If you're going to, the bottom line on the question about the repossession was, don't be afraid of your lender. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to focus on that.
They don't want to repo the car.
No, and so here's the thing: if you're feeling intimidated or stressed or embarrassed about your situation, and you're picking up the phone, please realize that you're going to be on edge. You might get somebody from the lender side who answers the phone, might not be very courteous, might be kind of rude or abrupt. Instead of yelling at them and getting upset and say they're not going to do anything, politely hang up the phone.
Yeah,
Say goodbye.
and I think that's the exception.
What,
Having
people being rude?
having a rude customer service
Oh, I agree. But
person.
when you're on edge,
Yeah.
even
Your
somebody
interpretation might be off.
exactly, exactly. So don't be afraid to politely say goodbye and then call back later and get somebody else. Especially with the big lenders, it's very unlikely you're going to get the same person twice, and you're going to get further by politely explaining the situation and asking for their help and cooperation. And what can you do? Because Damon, you've been the king of being able to get amazing things just by asking.
I call it the Jerry Maguire approach. The help me, help you.
Help you.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're trying to do. Like, hey, look, Mr. Lender, I'm in a bad way,
Yeah.
and you're in this with me, whether you want to be or not. So help me, help you. You can help me a little bit. I'll try to help you back by giving you some money, but I can't give you exactly what you want. But here's
Here's
what
what
I
I
can
can
give
do.
you. Yeah,
Right. Well, to take the Jerry Maguire thing a little bit further, they want to yell at you, show me the money.
yeah. Show me the money.
So, also what I thought was really interesting about this question was the guy said that his transmission was having problems, and that's why he was going to give the car back and try to buy another car.
Yeah.
He owed 25 grand on this 4-year-old Impala that now had to pay the car back and try to buy 5 grand or less. It's a broken car.
You know what doesn't have transmissions?
Horses,
Teslas.
Teslas. That's true. But he's going to end up with a big deficiency judgment, and they're going to come after him for the balance that's owed. Let's call it 20 grand.
Yeah.
And so now he's going to have to deal with that too.
So I think we helpful. Let's get into those different options, because
Yeah.
you did talk about those options on the Old Guy Insights channel. But let's say you're struggling. You got this massive car payment that you feel like you can't pay. There's obviously other bills that are going to be tied to. You're picking and choosing. Do I pay the mortgage? Do I pay the car payment? Do I pay the credit cards? But let's drill down to, if you're at a point where you almost feel like maybe I should get the car repoed. What things should I consider first? Like we talked about, well, call the lender. That's number one. Just call the lender, especially if you're already a month behind. It's not going to hit your credit report typically until you're over 30 days behind. So,
Right.
You miss a payment and you're 5 days behind and you're freaking out. It's not the time to panic yet, because it's just at worst case scenario, it's going to be a fee from the lender, which you often can call and get waived. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So call the lender. Hey, this is what happened and this is what's going on. And, first thing you can ask for forbearance, or, hey, can I skip a payment this month? And that's usually what they'll do. Although oftentimes, ironically, lenders won't let you skip a payment unless you're current on the payments. So it's best to call before you actually fall behind, even though that seems ass backwards. But yeah, so sometimes you might be in a situation where we'll give you a skip a payment, but you have to make this last payment that you missed first.
Yeah.
And then we'll let you skip next month. Right. So call before you fall behind if you can. But definitely talk to the lender, look at all of your options. They're not going to go right to a loan modification right away. They usually have some kind of forbearance option or something like that. A lot of lenders have them available once a year to skip a payment, right?
Yeah.
So just call and ask what's available.
They've been doing that ever since I was an adult.
That was when they had horses, no transmission.
Yeah. In this person's situation, the options that they had available, the voluntary repossession is the worst of the options because, you can get your transmission repaired or even replaced with a used transmission, which the transmission place will warranty for you. And replacing it with a used transmission is going to be between $2,000 and $3,000.
Yeah, but there are situations where you might have no credit left. You might already be maxed out on all your cards, and you just don't even though it's cheaper, you don't have $2,000 or $3,000. You have a broken car, and maybe you need that car to get to work. So there's times where it's just like it's not an option. They can't, maybe because of their credit, they cannot find any kind of financing. You want to go to the repair shop and they go, oh yeah, we offer financing. Well, they don't offer financing. They offer a pamphlet that you can call a bank, and the bank offers financing, not the actual repair shop.
Right.
So there are times where you just maybe are not in a situation where you can get that transmission fixed.
Okay, so let's talk about this guy in this situation. If he lets the car go, escargot. So if he lets the car go, then let's say it's a $20,000 deficiency judgment, and he doesn't have the money. He doesn't have $2,000 or $3,000 to fix the transmission, and that's what a Chapter 7 bankruptcy might cost him up front if he's going to go do that. So, what is your advice in this specific situation? What should he do first?
Well, so he's already talked to the lender now, and the lender's like, tough luck, right? So sad, not going to do anything. If he has no possible way to, because I agree with you, getting the transmission fixed, if you're looking at a potential $20,000 deficiency, which you might be in this situation, the next thing to do, if you absolutely cannot get the transmission fixed, would be to try to sell it yourself. Now, it's not going to be easy because in this case, you got a broken car, but you might be able to get more than $5,000 for it. But the problem is, unless that person's willing to somehow give you the 25 and carry back a note for, let's say somebody would be willing to buy a mechanic special, be willing to buy it for 10 grand. Now you're gonna have to come up with 15. So if you come up with 15, so the only way to do that would be like, well, I'll sell it to you for 10, but I need 25.
Yeah, because if you don't get the title, you don't have anything to sell.
So unless you're an excellent negotiator, that's going to be a hard route. So you may be in a situation where a voluntary repo is really kind of your only option, unfortunately, if you have no access to cash, right?
Yeah.
So you might what's going to happen if you go down that path, you eventually get this deficiency judgment that Steve's talking about. Well, now that's a separate thing. Car's gone. Again, that's the last resort. You don't want to repo it if you can get it sold or you can work with the bank. But if you have to, now you have to treat this just like any other debt. Now you've got this, whatever it is, $15,000, $20,000. You get the bill from the bank. This is going to be 5 months later, 6 months later, could be a year later. Sometimes these things don't happen that fast. And now you've got this $20,000. Well, now that's a whole separate issue. How do we deal with this unsecured $20,000 note that they're wanting to collect on? Whether you negotiate and settle that later, maybe you're in a better financial position by the time you get this debt. Maybe it's a year later and now maybe you're back on your feet, you're making more money, whatever it is. You can work with the lender on that or the collector to settle it. Maybe a Chapter 7 bankruptcy does make sense. So it just depends on your overall situation. But, if you can't hold on to the car and you have to let them repo it, you can, but just be prepared that however far upside down you think you are, it's going to be a lot more when you get that bill because the lender doesn't care about getting top dollar for that car. They're going to put it out there to a wholesaler, and that wholesaler is going to buy it at a price where they can for sure make money.
Yeah, I mean, so let's picture exactly what happens. Yeah. The car gets pushed through the auction barn, and a used car dealer, if it's, in reasonably good shape, a used car dealer is going to buy it, but they're only going to pay enough where they still can make a good profit even
Mhm.
after they fix the transmission.
Yeah.
So you should have no expectation that
And
you're
they're
going to
buying
get
it blind. They don't know that that's the only problem either, because they
right.
can't go test drive it before they buy it. So they're you know, the thing is, sell it before the transmission breaks.
Yeah.
Thank you for that one, Nostradamus.
So you know that you're not going to get top dollar at all. And so even if let's say you do give it back, you have a deficiency judgment, you could do a bankruptcy down the road. It's always an option. And
Yeah.
Damon, I've been very remiss in not reminding people that the way they get in touch with you is by going to your amazing website at
Well, if you see my website, you'll know I'm an awesome financial advisor, because I am a shitty web designer.
yeah.
I built that website like 15 years ago, and haven't. It's so old. A lot of my testimonials, the plugin is broken, and I haven't even fixed that. So it's like,
No, it's
listen.
so old that the little kids sitting on your lap are all grown up and in high school.
Well, my 11-year-old daughter is not even in the photo, and my oldest, who I'm holding his hand, is graduating this year from high school.
So proud.
I don't even know if I can still log into my website. I'm sure I've got that
So
password somewhere.
Damon, to reach Damon, go to Damon Day, DAMONDAY.com, and take a look at this little kid's pictures. They'll give you a laugh.
Hey, I
All
look
right.
younger and slimmer. I like
Well,
those photos.
that's true. You
It's
do
so
because you
old.
were.
If Steve was in the photo, he'd have hair.
A full beard, I'd have hair.
Yeah,
Oh
Steve
my
used to
God.
look like me.
Yeah. All right. So don't panic if you're in this situation. Get some good advice. The reason I brought up your website, Damon, is because when somebody's in a situation like this, it's probably the first time they've been there. They don't know what they don't know. They're afraid and embarrassed and everything else. At least they can reach out to you. You're not going to judge them at all. And you're going to help guide them through, hey, here's what the possible options are. And you're then going to let them make what they think is the best decision for them.
Yeah,
You're not there to force somebody what to do.
yeah, and a lot of the stuff I learned by going through it myself. I did a voluntary repo on a big fifth wheel trailer back in 08. Oh, this is when everything crashed, right? And I think it was 08. It might have been 09 by the time I did the voluntary repo. But I knew I was going to be filing for bankruptcy, because, not because of the trailer, because of everything else that was going on. So the funny thing about that was, I called up the lender, and I was in a different state at the time, and they were like looking for it. It's like 4 or 5 months behind. They were looking for this trailer, and I called them up, and well, here's the thing: they were sneaky, because I called them up and I told them I was working on it, and da 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 da, and they said, okay, no problem, we'll give you time, blah blah blah. I can't remember all the details, but I remember them telling me, no problem, we'll work with you. And then I can't remember how I found out, but there was a guy somehow called me that knew, like, I don't know, there was a name mix up or something, but the guy was going through a trailer park in a different state, looking for my
Yeah.
trailer, which was in storage at my house. I don't know. Anyway, but I found out that the bank was kind of being sneaky. But this was, back in 08. And so I called him up and I was like, hey, I thought you guys said you'd work with me. And they're of course playing dumb. And so anyway, I said, well, look, I'm not going to play these games. Just come get the trailer. It's fine. Yeah. Come get it. Now, this was a big 40-foot, fifth wheel, 20,000 pound RV, not just something you just swing by and grab,
Yeah.
So I remember I made the arrangement. Hey, here's where it's at. I'll meet the guy there, whatever. Made all the arrangements. The guy comes up, he looks at the trailer and he goes, I can't tow that. This sucker's so big, it's repo proof. It's too big to tow. So anyway, talk about, me negotiating stuff. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll tow it to your yard for you for $500.
Cash?
Yeah. And he looks at me and he's like, are you serious? You're killing me. I'm like, well, you can tow it. He's like, I don't have a truck big enough to pull this. I'm
Yeah.
like, and I bet you don't have the right hitch connection either because it's a specialized hitch on there. He goes, it's only 15 miles away. He goes, $400. I'm like, done. All right. So I hitched it up and towed it to the yard for him. And then I ended up, months later, I got a bill for, I don't remember, 20 or 25 grand, but it's just included in the eventual bankruptcy that I filed.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting paid $400 to voluntarily repo it. I'm like, thanks. What do you think? Fallen shit, come out smelling like a rose.
Well, over the years, I've had, dozens of clients who eventually went the voluntary repossession route because, as I advised them, look, at least have some control over the situation.
Yeah, that way
all the
what's
people,
going on. Yeah,
all the people that have had cars repoed and like, my medicine was in it, or something else. At least you're in control of the situation.
Well, you watch those guys on the shows, chasing down the tow truck, like, no.
Yeah.
Or trying to drive their truck back off.
Oh,
the tow truck.
Yeah.
Like,
damage it and everything else.
That's not making it better, bro.
All right. Is there anything else we need to add to this particular situation?
I thought there was.
So let me recap things you can ask the lender for: loan modification, deferment or forbearance, refinancing.
Yeah, I know. I was going to add this other quick story. A client I had years ago. It doesn't always have to be a broken transmission that you can't get out of the car, right? Let's say you're not behind on the car, you're not really upside down, or maybe just a tiny bit, but you realize the payment is just too large and you can't. It's just pulling you down.
Yeah,
and you can't hold on to it. That would be an option where getting it sold, could really help, especially if you're not really that far upside down and the car's running, and just getting it sold before you just let it go, right? So try to sell it. So I had a client one time, he was in a really nice car, and he was getting up there in his years, about to retire, and he only used this car. It's like a $1,400 a month car payment. Really, really nice Mercedes. He only drove it a couple of miles each day to work and back, and that was really it.
Yeah.
And he didn't need this kind of car, especially with what he was going through financially and with his wife and everything from a medical standpoint. So what I had advised him to do was buy a new car, right? Another car, but a $40,000 car, not a $120,000 car, or whatever it was. And because he was upside down, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 grand, like he could not sell that car. Right. So we did the voluntary repo, but he bought the new car first while his credit was still good.
Yep.
Bought the new car. It dropped the payment down to like $400 a month rather than $1,400 a month.
Here's your car back.
And then he drove the car back to the dealership and gave it back to him.
Yeah.
Right. So, and now what eventually happened with that was we knew he was going to be filing bankruptcy, but we were just waiting for him to officially retire because his income was going to drop sufficiently to where once he was retired, and then his retirement income was all protected in the bankruptcy anyway. Yeah. And then, so it is what it is. I mean, he got a bill for, I think it was $40,000 or $50,000 for that car, but he couldn't afford it. I mean, he just couldn't afford it. And again, I'm not saying that's the goal when you buy a car like that, but his circumstances changed from when he had bought the car to where we were at now. And that was the thing that made the most sense for him financially, because his focus at that point was making sure he had enough funds to care for his wife. She needed around the clock in-home care. And all of a sudden that really nice car was not important anymore.
The other thing that struck me from reading the question was I really felt like, he was 25 grand underwater on a used vehicle that he had purchased. He must have been underwater when he bought that car and rolled the negative equity into it, because
people do that a lot. I mean, that's just pretty common because dealers want to sell you a car. So you go in there with a bat. Oh, you're already upset. Oh, well, don't worry about that. We'll see if we can get the bank into financing this extra $10,000 on they get paid on the transaction. They could care less whether or not you can. The salesperson could give two shits if you can't make the payment 6 months from now. That's not his problem. He got paid.
Yeah. So the moment that you do that initially, just roll negative equity into a new car loan, it never ends well, because you're going to be upside down and the car is going to get worn out or have a problem or something, and you're going to owe more than the car's worth. Just please never, ever, ever do that.
When you roll negative equity into the car, you're just delaying the voluntary repo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to push that off for a few more years.
Yeah, it's good. That's
yeah.
like when the butterfly flapped its wings, right?
my favorite is these sales guys. Because I've been pulling trailers pretty much my whole life. That's what we like to do. We like to go camp and all that kind of stuff, and we go all over the place in them. My favorite is the sales don't ever, 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 ever listen to the salesperson when he goes, "What kind of trailer do you have?" "Oh yeah, this truck will tow it."
Yeah.
It never will tow it. This is the truck that I have and I want you to buy. So no matter what kind of trailer, how big it is, how heavy it is, I will tell you this half ton will tow it. No problem. Yeah, this half ton's rated for 20,000 pounds. Sure. Go ahead and do it. Single wheel, no problem.
No problem. A little F-150, whatever those. What are those new ones called?
He's okay.
The mini Ford pickup trucks.
I don't know. I don't play with toy trucks, Steve.
All right, Damon. Unless there's anything else, until next time. See ya.
If it ain't a dually, it ain't a truck. Peace.